In the exercise to my left, I've got a description of a linear function. I've got a table, I've got a graph, and I've got a formula. What I would like to do is show you how to play with the calculator a little bit in graphing a function and finding values for a function. So let's begin by entering the function into the calculator. In the top left-hand corner here is a y equal key. If I press y equals, this is where I input my functions. So in this case, this function would be 0.12x. To input the variable x, there's a key right here next to the green alpha key. I can press that, and then I'm going to say plus 4.16. So we can see right here, y1, my first function, is going to be equal to 0.12x plus 4.16. Now over on the other side, on the right-hand side, it says graph. So if I press the graph key, there's my function. Now the window is not exactly what I'd like to see. Since we're talking about the number of gallons of waste, I would like it to actually illustrate the gallons of waste as positive values. So what I can do is I can adjust my window. So if I press window, I can set the left bound and the right bound for the along the x-axis. So in this case, I don't want to use -10. So maybe I'll enter 0. So only the number of gallons will be 0 to 10. But also I see that the number of gallons could be 32 or 68. So maybe I'll increase the maximum to 70. Now for the y values, since my y values are 8 and 12.32, 10 will include one but not the other. So what I'm going to do here is change the maximum y value, let's say maybe to 16. And as a general rule, what I like to do is take 1/4 of the y maximum, which in this case would be 4. 1/4 of 16 is 4, and make it -4. So the negative sign is down here at the very bottom of the calculator. So press negative and then 4. And so now when I graph, what you'll see now is there's my function. And all these tick marks are a bit busy, so you really can't tell much using these tick marks. I'm going to go back to the window, and the tick marks are controlled by the x scale and the y scale value. So along the x-axis, I'm going to have an x scale of 10. So I'll get a tick mark every 10 units. And then for the y scale, let's go down. Sorry about that. I'll choose 5. And so now when I press graph, notice now that the tick marks, there's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70, the maximum value. And here's 5, 10, and 15. So if you'll notice, the intercept is just below 5, which agrees with our 4.16. So I've graphed this function. Now maybe I want to account for many, many more gallons of waste. So let's change the window. Maybe I can include up to 200 gallons of waste. And so then I can press graph once more. And now I notice that my function went off the screen. So I'd want to adjust my window so the y max went high enough to account for it. Now rather than guessing, what I can do is kind of look at some values in a table. You notice right above the graph button, there's a button that says, in blue print, it says table. So I press second and graph, I can get a table of values. Now this looks a bit scary. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the table, but here I've got x, the input values, and y1, the function values. So to set the table, the second button over the window where we adjusted the window for the graph, we can adjust what values are put into the table with table set. So I'll press second and then the window key for table set. And so here, the tables start, what value you want to start with. So maybe I'll put in 0 as they have it. Then you have the delta table. So what's the difference between your input values going to be? So right now it's set to do every 10. And so down here, I want to set both of these to auto just to make things easy on us. So now when I go back to table, it's going to start at 0 and then go every 10. So press second and graph for table. So now the input values start at 0 and then go 10, 20, 30, and so forth. And so here I can see the intercept and then the corresponding values. And so if I go to 60, I've got that. If I keep scrolling down, you can see how I can go as far out as I want. So when I get down to around 200, which is the maximum X that I've plugged in for my window, it appears that I need to have a value of at least 28.16. So let's go back to our window and set the Y max now to be more like 32. 1/4 of 32 now is 8. So I will change the -4 to -8. And now when I press graph, the entire graph shows on the screen. Now if you want to find particular values along this function, one thing you can do is if you press second and then the trace key, notice the first option is value. If you press 1 for value, it'll say x equals. So plug in an x value. Let's try 68 and hit enter. And notice when x is equal to 68, y is equal to 12.32, and it will plot that point on the line with that little x. So if I wanted to find the value of 120 gallons, I could press second, trace for calculate, press number 1 for value, x equals, put in 120 gallons, press enter, and it would lock in, put the cursor on the graph. So when x is equal to 120, y, the charges would be $18.56. So these are just some things that you can do to play on the calculator with your function, using the table and the graph.